This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so turn it over to Bob Schwartz, our new chairman of the MJTC, the Montachusett Joint Transportation Committee. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. Are there any public comments? No public comments. We'll go to approval of July 12th, 2023 minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Guy Corbacero.
Second that, Travis Condon.
Any discussions? No discussion.
All right, if there's no objections, we'll assume it's consensus and we'll approve the minutes. I see none, so we'll take that as
I have
passed.
an abstain myself. I wasn't present.
That's okay, George. We don't do the roll call vote for motions. We just do by consensus. So as long as there's no errors, we'll just go by consensus of everybody.
Okay.
Item 4 on the agenda, Montachusett 2023-2027 Transportation Improvement Program. Who's got that?
That is going to be George Snow.
Thank you. This amendment pertains to the FFY 2023 tip. So that it pertains to just that portion of the current tip. The MPO was contacted by Mass DOT about the need to amend the tip due to price increases for two projects in the highway element. The first project is number 612-620 in Harvard, is a bridge preservation project, Route 2 over the Nashua River, Tank Road, and the Boston and Maine Railroad. The project has seen a cost increase from about 2.7 mil to about 3.7 mil for a net increase of about 1 mil. Because this represents an increase of more than $500,000 for a program project under 5 mil, an amendment to the highway element is required. Also, this project is being moved from Section 1B, earmark or discretionary grant funded projects, to Section 2A, state prioritized reliability projects, which does not impact our target funds. The second project is number 610-672 in Garner on Elm Street, that is a resurfacing and sidewalk improvement safe routes to school project. The project has seen a cost increase from about 1.25 mil to about 1.81 mil for a net increase of about $570,000. Because this represents an increase of about $500,000 for a program project under 5 mil, an amendment to the highway element is required. Also, this project is not expected to be ready for FFY 2023. It needs to be moved to FFY 2024. A motion was made, seconded, and passed at the 7/26/23 MPO meeting to release the amendment for an abbreviated 14-day public review and comment period, so FHWA has the time to approve the action before they close their books at the end of August. The review and comment period commenced on 8/1/23 and will close at the end of business on 8/14/23. No comments have been received as of today. Today we are seeking MJTC comments on the amendment and to pass a possible recommendation to the MPO that the amendment be passed by that body. And that's all I have.
Brad, I have a question.
Yes.
Does one of the bridges goes over the railroad? Don't they kick in for some of that bridge?
Do they kick in for what? I'm sorry, as part of that bridge project? The railroad people?
Yeah, do they pay for some of the bridge?
I honestly do not know. I would have to ask District 3. I don't know if Sarah, if she's here, if she has any knowledge about that. And whether
I don't think so. I think because it's our roadway over the rail line, it's our responsibility. I mean, I can double check, but I'm fairly certain that they don't. They participate because we need them to do the work over the railroad. But in terms of paying for it, it's our responsibility, I believe.
I seem to recall when our Pleasant Street here in Gardner, we had a bridge replaced, and they paid for a good percentage of it. So that's the reason why I asked the question.
It probably has to do with the function of the bridge and whether it was being rebuilt as a railroad bridge, from that aspect, or from the highway aspect. Probably has something to do with that.
Maybe. Okay.
Any other questions from anyone on this tip amendment? If not, we'd like to get consensus on a recommendation to recommend to the MPO that they endorse the tip amendment as presented. Is there any objections to that?
No, I recommend to approve it.
Okay. Any
I'll
opposition?
second that.
I do not see any. So we'll consider that consensus of the MJTC to recommend that it be endorsed by the MPO at their meeting next week. Thank you very much. That
Item number 5, Montachusett Regional Transportation Plan.
and that will be Brian.
Brad, do we have a transit amendment to go
Yeah.
over as well? Or is it
Yeah, there's one
just,
more.
the
Oh, I'm
highway?
sorry. My mistake. My mistake. Okay. So we have to go back one to the transit amendment under amendment.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, George.
Thank you. The MPO was contacted by MART and MassDOT about the need to amend the TIP due to the recent awards of new projects that need to be added to the transit element. GAMA will be the receiving agency for 2 vans. The GAMA project number MART 011519 under the Section 5310 program is for the purchase of 2 E2B vans at a total cost of $222,000. The MART project number MART 011520 is also under the Section 5310 program, is for the purchase of 4 E2B vans at a total cost of $444,000. The projects are additions to the TIP, have not been included in any previously approved STIP, and have not been vetted through the public process. They are new to the TIP process and therefore require an amendment to the current TIP. A motion was made, seconded, and passed at the 7/26/23 MPO meeting to release the amendment for an abbreviated 14-day public review and comment period, so FTA has time to approve the action before they close their books at the end of August. Review and comment period commenced on 8/1/23 and closed at the end of business on 8/14/23. No comments have been received as of today. Today we are seeking MJTC comments on the amendment and to make a possible recommendation to the MPO that the amendment be passed by that body. And that's all I have.
Are there any comments or questions regarding this amendment? I do not see anything. That being the case, we'd like consensus of the MJTC to recommend to the MPO that they endorse the TIP amendment as presented. Is anyone against that resolution or that consensus? Again, I see no hands raised. So we will take that as approved. Consensus is to recommend it be endorsed. And I think that's now it for the TIP amendments, unless I've messed something else up.
You're all, Brett.
Okay. So now we can go on to item number 5, Bob.
Okay. Montachusett Regional Transportation Plan. Review additional comments and responses to draft 2024.
And again, that's
That'll be me. So last month, I'm sure you remember, we went over some comments we received on the RTP. We were right in the middle of the comment period. At that point, we had 2 comments, one from MassDOT and one from MART. However, during the comment period, we received 3 additional comments before it closed. So what happened, originally this group gave the recommendation to the MPO to endorse at July meeting, but ultimately a decision was made to hold off another month by the MPO so we get a chance to review and respond to these new comments. So today what we're going to do is review these, and again, we'll look for a consensus recommendation to the MPO for endorsement next week at their meeting. So the handouts that we sent out with the mailing last week included these 3 additional comments. They were pretty extensive. One came from the Groton Sustainability Commission, one from the North Central Climate Change Coalition, and another from a private citizen, Carolyn Sellers. And the comments were detailed, and they shared many of the same themes. A lot of climate related comments were included. 2 of the comments were very, very similar from Groton Sustainability Commission and North Central Climate Change Coalition. So what we did was, in our response, we combined those 2 comments into one sort of response, which we'll go over. And the other comment from the private citizen, Carolyn Sellers, we respond to separately. So due to the length and detail of the comments, we opted to send them out with the mailing. We'll do the same to the MPO for their mailing for next week's meeting. That'll give a chance for them to review those. So I won't go over everything in detail on those. I think 2 of the comments were a page and a half. The third was like 12 pages. So there's a lot of material in there. So that's what we've been doing the last few weeks. We're trying to rectify and respond to these. All 3 of the full comments will be included in the appendix to the tip, as well as our condensed version with the response as well. So I'll get into the comments and the responses, and the way we set this up in this first group here is we see on the left column of the table is we basically condensed certain comments in the first 2 letters from Groton Sustainability Commission, North Central Climate Change Coalition into one, and we grouped them and responded to them accordingly. So the first type of comment basically has to do with goal number 7 in the RTP, which is to reduce greenhouse gas, promote environmental practices and sustainability. And specifically, they comment regarding a performance measure that we set, which is to increase alternative fuel vehicles and transit fleets by 2025. And they basically cite a lack of detail in that performance measure. And they state that it's short-lived, being that it ends in 2025. In our response, we go into sort of what we normally do, what our role is in the greenhouse gas reporting through the TIP and the RTP. And regarding the EV charging infrastructure, MRPC will work to support the state National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, deployment program. This is the framework that Massachusetts has to expand the network. So our role is basically to relay that information and offer support to our communities. A number of platforms that we have, JTC, the MPO, MRPC commission meetings, our website and social media and stuff like that. We always push those notices out. And as for the performance measure, this was derived from Mart's capital program. So this was an identified performance measure before this RTP. We didn't want to recreate any performance measures, and I know it's a short window. It's really just 1 year into the plan, closing in 2025. But again, this was identified before the plan was put together. So basically, with these performance measures, it's important to keep these years in place. That way, we have a benchmark to stop and see if we're meeting our performance measures in 2025. And I assume at that point, when we go and update the RTP in a few years, we'll have additional performance measures and additional benchmark years and stuff like that to put in there. So that's why that is the way it is. Moving down to the second comment, says in part, in addition, providing information on and grant writing support for incentives for EV chargers, such as mass EVIP public access charging incentives, and educational campus charging incentives would help achieve the goal of increasing the number of chargers throughout the region. And our response, and again, North Central Climate Change Coalition had a similar comment within their letter. And our response basically is we have and always will offer services to member communities with grant writing support. This is ultimately up to the communities to reach out to us and engage us. We've done this type of thing in the past. We also view our role again as to relay this information, some of these statewide and national programs that are available to our audience and to our members. So that's sort of where we view our role. We're certainly in support of these programs, and we'll continue to be moving forward. The third theme here in both letters states in part, and again, I'm just kind of summarizing this, states in part, we urge the MRPC to devote more attention in its planning to assisting member towns in catching up with and exceeding state averages by alternative fuel vehicle adoption, thereby reducing overall transportation related greenhouse gas emissions. And our response, MRPC works to support federal and state programs, projects and goals as needed and appropriate. This includes notification of programs to assist communities with fleet vehicle conversion, as well as supporting infrastructure. However, it is not within our purview to lobby for the private purchase of the EV vehicles. MRPC will remain a review of data through the mass vehicle census, something they cited in their letters, and we'll actually include some additional analysis from this mass vehicle census that just became available in the last few months. We'll put that in the RTP as well, because we feel like it's valuable data to have. Comment number 4. This is in relation to analysis in the environment chapter. Basically, we looked at some of the infrastructure affected by environment and climate change, such as flooding. We looked at bridges and roads and dams, and they're recommending to include culverts in the analysis. And they cite a Mass DER report that is alarming because it mentions that culverts, many of them are insufficient, especially as water levels rise and flooding events increase and get more severe. Really the reason why we haven't had the culverts into the data analysis is because there's not great data for culverts in our region. We get these bridge and roadway data from state curated databases, and it's very good information. We can rely on it. And certainly there's a problem with inadequate culverts across the region and across the state and everywhere. But we didn't really have the numbers to put that down. So our response, first off, we detail some of the work we do in this area. We previously had a stormwater app we made available to communities, and this was available to do inventories on their stormwater facilities, such as culverts and runoff areas and stuff like that. We offered it at no cost to towns, and we offered training as well. And to date, very few communities have made use of the app. So, we're working in this area to encourage communities to get better data and get better inventories of what's out there. Certainly, we're always available if there's an interest to assist communities in this type of thing. We can investigate potential developments in the future work programs, but it's a significant undertaking to curate such a database and inventory of stormwater runoff and culvert data in the region. So that's a little bit beyond our abilities, but we certainly want to give people a hand up in doing so. We recognize the importance of it as well. The comment also states that the regional transportation plan could facilitate needed upgrades in member towns by connecting them with available funding. And again, as I mentioned, this is something we normally do. Specifically, the culvert replacement municipal assistance grant program. We can't force communities to pursue these grants, but we certainly do whatever we can to make them available. If we can assist to these existing programs, we encourage communities to reach out to us for assistance. Number 5 here, states in part, transportation plan for the region must address mobility and transit solutions for all our communities. The plan needs mobility strategies and performance measures related to providing alternatives to personal vehicles. It also states that Journey to 2050 needs to have more information about a rider demographics study. So basically our response is the rider demographic study was referenced a number of times through all 3 letters. And basically, this is a planned study to be conducted by MART in the future, utilize new fare collection systems that provide increased data on ridership. We go into the effect that pandemic has had on ridership, and pre-pandemic levels are different than what they are now. And once we get such a study rolling and the available data available to us, we'll be able to do some analysis on that type of thing. Finally, our joint response to these two entities, they state in part in their comment, we strongly recommend that the RTP Journey to 2050 includes an examination of opportunities to address transit and mobility solutions that cross RPA boundaries. Joining communities are often in different RPAs, and this complicates our ability to address regional solutions. And our response, certainly we agree with that statement. What we don't explicitly state in the RTP is the work that we kind of do on a regular day-to-day basis behind the scenes with the Regional Transit Authority, relationship with MART, and their efforts, especially under new leadership. I know that they're undertaking a review of their services with the overall goal to implement and expand service to areas of needs. We're also conducting a transportation management area study in the upcoming work program that'll look at things like microtransit and improved services. And also additionally, we as a staff at MRPC, and I know MART does this as well, and Transportation and Transit, we meet on a regular basis with other RPAs and RTAs. So that communication line exists, and it's an open line of communication. So we just want to state that, even though we didn't explicitly state that within the RTP itself. So we acknowledge that. So we also provided some of the handouts that we've had in the past from some of the programs that were cited in the letters, many of them culvert replacement, things like that. So of course, you probably recognize that in a lot of these meetings, we have a number of handouts at the end, usually from state and federal resources of funding and different ongoing. So we'll continue to do that as part of our effort to push some of these improvements. And finally, we have a comment from Carolyn Sellers, who's a private citizen in the region. It's a very extensive comment, 12 pages long, and we appreciate all the feedback. There's some important information and things to consider. And basically, we condensed her comments into this box. We couldn't cover everything in this box, but we did include the letter in the appendix of the actual RTP, so it does exist there. So again, the comments ranged in topics of climate change, outreach, equity, trends, etc. It made reference to a variety of other plans and findings, along with findings of other planning exercise in the region. And aside from general comments, the RTP itself, specific references were proposed, or proposed changes were made in a number of different chapters and sections listed here. And again, it's included in the appendix. So our response is, first off, we're certainly thankful for the feedback. And we go on to note the engagement process, which we've done and the JTC is aware of. We say, please note that the creation of this RTP occurred alongside a robust public engagement process, which had begun in the spring of 2022 and designed to get feedback from both public officials and general public. And we give an example of our process for the goals, objectives, strategy, and performance measures. This was culminated from extensive presentation, discussion, feedback from JTC and the MPO over a number of months, and certainly we improved on that in the last year or so. So we wanted to detail that. She also makes reference, along with the other two letters, to a number of plans and programs in the state and the nation as well. We plan to add reference to a number of these, such as the climate assessment in Massachusetts and the clean energy and climate plan, et cetera. So there are a number of those we'd like to add information. We think that would be useful and make the product better. And we go on to highlight our role in promoting and accessing these plans and opportunities in the region, just like I spoke about with the other two letters. So that's really it for the comments that we've received. We'd be happy to answer any of the questions in the comments or responses. And ultimately, we're again looking for a recommendation, consensus, the MPO to endorse.
I make a recommendation to accept it as presented.
I just want to make one comment first. There was a chat put out by Chelsea and about the difference between lobbying and promoting or making communities aware and benefits of electric vehicles. That is true. And as Brian kind of covered some of that, we try to make our communities aware of any programs or grant programs or projects that come across our desk, advocating for replacement of fossil fuel vehicles with electric vehicles. We post them to our website, we email them directly to communities, and we'll continue to do that as we keep getting these. So that I think that will be our role, is to offer to make communities aware, and we do offer our communities our assistance in putting together grant applications. So if there are interest in some of these, we can talk to a community and see where we can help and what can be done on our end. But we will continue to make communities aware of these programs, the alternative fuel vehicles. That being said, are there any other comments or questions on the review of comments?
Right, Brian, Bob Schwartz. I have a question. I was under the impression from being on the planning board that culverts are required to be designed and built for 100-year flood. I don't know why that popped into my head, but it seems to me the 100-year flood ought to be sufficient.
You're probably right, Bob. The problem is with a lot of the infrastructure that's there, most of this stuff hasn't been updated in a long time. So there's a lot of issues with culverts, and that directly, affects the issues we're seeing with increased flooding and that sort of thing. And with the culvert replacement program, there's inadequate funding, no doubt, to do all the work that's needed. But that's one thing that we try to support as much as we can to kind of direct people in that direction. I would assume that the modern standards are to get it to last through a 100-year flood event. But you probably hear all the time, if you read into these things, 100-year flood event is happening more often than 100 years too now. So there's a real crisis with infrastructure and culverts being one of the things that there's a crisis with.
Okay, thank you.
I'd also like to say that I know that there's a lot of communities out there that really don't have a good handle on how many culverts they do have and they're responsible for, and they are getting plugged up and they are getting, clogged with vegetation and such. But we encourage the communities to review these proposals and review these programs, and to reach out to us. There may be some things we can do in terms of mapping, providing some maps, providing some GIS assistance to help them locate and identify culverts in their community. So we do have that ability here at the MRPC. So we leave that open to the communities to reach out to us.
Are there some situations in communities where these culverts are responsible of the Corps of Engineers?
Very well could be, but I'm not sure how we identify those and where that listing is. But I'm sure there are a lot of them under the Army Corps of Engineers purview.
So that would be mostly up to the community that have that collaboration with the Corps.
Yes, I believe so. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, and all we need is a consensus to recommend the plan to the MPO.
Can I ask one more question before you vote?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, so the edits that were made to the document from last time include adding the references and the cited plans. What else did you add or delete from the document that we reviewed?
I can say that nothing was deleted. Basically, what we tried to add was more references to these type of plans. Certainly we couldn't put everything in there. There was some requests to changes to the goals, objectives, and policies, performance measures. We felt like that went through that extensive public process. We didn't feel comfortable doing that. Most of the changes were all of the changes, I should say, are additions and references to some of these plans.
Okay.
We're going to add some analysis from the vehicle census. That data just became available to us in the last few months. We got a presentation on that last month. We feel like that's certainly relevant to the environment section. We talk about electric vehicles. That's a point that we plan on monitoring in the future. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So mostly just a few additions here and there.
Yeah, no substantial change to any of the recommendations or the findings of the documents. Really, like Brian said, in addition of referring to additional documents to become aware of, and also just sometimes clarification of poor grammar and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Being said, is there anyone objects to the consensus recommendation? I do not see anyone, so we will accept that as approved, the consensus given. Thank you very much.
Item number 6, discussion of the MJTC bylaws, possible updates. You should
Thank you.
have all
That's
been
mine.
provided a copy.
Yep, I hope so. This item came up because it was raised by a member being appointed, and the question was, could someone be appointed to represent 2 communities to the MJTC? And specifically, there's nothing in the bylaws that say that individual that says you can, you cannot do this. So the question was raised, is this something that could be done? And maybe it's time to seek a clarification to the bylaws to address this. Now, the bylaws state in Article 2 on the membership in the planning group that the MJTC is inclusive rather than an exclusive in order to provide an open and broadly participatory transportation planning process. All communities within MRPC will be represented. Composition is 1 representative of the cities and towns of the planning area appointed by the planning board for each community, and 1 representing the mayor or board of selectmen from each community. And then there's also provision there for adding organizations if they lobby to become a member. And in the past, we've had different groups lobby for that, such as North Central Mass Chamber of Commerce and so on. But the question of whether someone can represent 2 communities is what needs to be possibly discussed, and see if we can clarify it. Now, the process for making a change to what would be the bylaws involves a bylaw committee. I'm sorry. And then there'd be an amendment to the bylaws, and those bylaws or amendments have to have a notice that affects. Notice stating that there's an amendment to the bylaw being proposed has to be sent with the announcement of 2 successive regular meetings of the MJTC to all municipalities. The proposed amendment will be on the agenda for the first meeting for discussion only, and on the second meeting for action. So if we were to proceed to try and address this issue, we would need to establish a bylaw committee, which would meet and discuss and propose an amendment to the bylaws, and then make the announcement at 2 successive meetings of the amendment that's being proposed. The bylaws itself don't state anything about how big the bylaw committee needs to be. I would probably recommend that we just hold an initial bylaw discussion during a regular MJTC meeting so that everyone can participate, and that we come out of that with a recommendation to amend, and then go through the process of announcing it at 2 successive meetings. And the other item that I'm bringing up at this time, I thought since we're going to be trying to address this issue about membership appointments, that maybe we could discuss also the voting procedures for the election of officers for the MJTC. Currently, it involves a 3-month process where we select the nominating committee in May. Nominating committee meets in June and presents a slate, and then the election is held in July. I've thought before that that's a little long, and maybe we could reduce that. Maybe there's no need to change it at all. It seems appropriate for everybody as is. Or we just change the timing of the process so that the election takes place in June, and in July, the brand new slate takes over as chair and officers for the MJTC. So those are the 2 points that I'm just bringing up for discussion for the JTC to decide how we want to proceed at this point, whether to convene a bylaw discussion at an upcoming meeting and then seek to amend it, or if there are other questions or other items that should be addressed at this time. So at this point, it's more of a discussion of the process we need to do and what steps we need to have going forward. Are there any questions? And again, the main question is whether someone can be appointed to represent 2 communities on the MJTC. And since we don't take votes,
I
yes,
have a question.
yes,
I mean, there is not enough people in the community to have one representative.
individual communities have individual issues. You've seen over the years, George, number of participants we will have in the MJTC. I will say it has grown since we've been able to do the online meetings. And we used to struggle sometimes to get a quorum, which is just 3 communities or 4 communities. But now we meet that requirement easily. The other thing about votes, we don't do really any formal voting at the MJTC unless some issue comes up and someone raises the issue and wants to bring it to a formal vote. So I don't see voting as being a particularly stumbling block, roadblock to such an appointment of a person representing 2 communities. But it's a question of whether we think it's fair or there needs to be other things taken into consideration. I, for one, welcome as many communities involvement as possible, whether it's through one person representing 2 or 2 separate individuals. It's just a matter of we want the information getting back to our communities, whichever way it can get back there is best for us. Anyone else with any thoughts?
Brad, what I suggest is that we put this on hold and give everyone a chance to review the bylaws and address those highlighted items that you had provided and bring it up for discussion at the next meeting.
Okay.
That's my thought.
And maybe we can send this information to all the communities to vote on it and feedback.
I think getting the communities to vote, I think if we vote on the MJTC, that technically is the communities voting on it, on the bylaw. So it's just a matter of how the members feel about it and whether they think a person representing 2 communities can effectively advocate for those 2 communities as things move forward. And if you would ask me about possible conflict points, I'm sure we could come up with some examples, but we can also present and discuss it, as Bob said, at the next meeting and have a full discussion of the issue.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Wood. I'm here from Leominster.
Yep, Elizabeth.
And I work for the city of Leominster full time, but when I'm not working for Leominster in my off hours, I serve as a land use agent for Ashby. And both of those communities, Leominster is my number 1, so I serve for Leominster, but Ashby's also asked me to see if I could be their representative. And since I'm already going to the meetings, it made sense to report back to both towns, but I don't know if I can be an official capacity to do both.
Okay.
It's so hard to get somebody to commit to go to the meetings in the first place because everybody's pressed thin and already committed to a lot of other things. So if we already have me going to the meetings, it makes sense to report back to both.
That's true. There's no reason why, someone can report to another community and provide information also. It's just whether we need to codify it into actual bylaws or something. But I think we can have that discussion starting going forward and see if we can do an amendment to the bylaws if needed.
Thank you.
Brad, Tim Kilhart from Harvard. The only thing I can see in relation to this would be that we just want to make sure, representing them. I know we don't do many votes at the MJTC, but you may need in the bylaws, if you need to clarify something, if you represent two communities, you still should only have one vote. You can't vote one for one community and one for another. I mean, if the community wants to be represented, then they need to send somebody to be an individual vote, because I mean, it could be that Leominster wants to vote one way and Ashby wants to vote the other, so they'd cancel each other out. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I think that's the major issue probably to be addressed by the bylaw amendment is if there is a requirement for a vote, how does that take place? And that's probably the only really major stumbling block, I think, regarding that option. Any other comments? Right, so
Guy Corbicero,
yes, Guy.
may I comment here? I just
Sure.
wanted to comment. I think that it would behoove the communities to have somebody represent two of them if the information is not getting back to the committee because they don't have somebody on the board. So if they have somebody on the MJTC that can report back to them, it's better than not. Now, as far as the vote, I think they can vote either way for each community on that. That's just my opinion on that. And then when you go to the point you brought up about 3 months it takes to elect the officers, I believe that we should have that much time. I noticed with the MRPC, some of the times that we have the committees get together, they can't get together, and time becomes of the essence. So I'd rather see the 3 months there. Just my comments.
That's fine. All right, so I can place this on the agenda for the next MJTC, and we can discuss at that point and see if we can make a recommendation for any possible amendments to the bylaws. Sound good?
Yep.
Thank you.
Number 7, contract status reports. Federal Transit Administration, is that rep present?
I think that usually it's George Haley from MART. We'll talk on FTA and MART. On MART side for FTA, we have nothing to update at this time.
Okay.
George?
Well, for MART, I have MART is working on a couple projects. I will update you on it. First project, it is MART Carey Street Parking Improvement Project. This project will see a complete overhaul of the Carey Street parking lot and features, creating 50 parking spaces, and that will increase our available parking for both employees as well as creating dedicated fleet parking. In addition to that, features will include security fencing, new storm drainage system, and I don't know if you know the parking area, we're going to remove the telephone pole from the parking, put it underground, and that burying the utility underground. The project will greatly improve MART facility and provide additional needed parking, and also better secure both the physical site and MART assets. and this is it is under it's going on right now, and Mart anticipate the completion of this project by the end of September, October. The other one project we are working on is the grant Mart received under the Share Streets and the Space Parking program under Mass DOT for 2023. We got awarded $180,000 for bus shelters, and I like to let you know we just received the 18 bus shelters, and soon we'll be starting installing these shelters in 3 communities: Atoll, Gardner, and Fitchburg. And this is what I have. Any questions?
George, not related to what you reported, but for the application that the Mart submitted for new vehicles, those 2 vehicles would be the first 2 electric vehicles for your fleet?
Yes.
So you're going modern.
Yes. Yeah,
Thank you,
we are submitting 2 for buses, but each bus costs over $1 million.
Wow.
And we have in our budget $3 million to get 1 bus and the equipment to service the bus and to for the electric features to power the bus. Costs a lot of money.
Another question, George. Has the Mart ever discussed or thought about converting to the current fleet to hydrogen power?
No, not yet.
Seems to me that hydrogen power vehicles would be more appropriate in the Northeast because of the cold weather.
Oh, I hope so. Well, we'll try to discuss it with our group. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome, George.
Okay. For
Have you
Mass
taken
Dot,
care of the regional transit report?
yes, he did.
Okay.
And I have the Mass Department of Transportation status report.
Chris is here, yes.
As we mentioned earlier, the MPO will be meeting next week on Wednesday, August 16th at 1 p.m. And the main action item obviously will be the endorsement of the 2024 RTP. From the MassDOT Safe Routes to School program, Brian, do you have that? Yes, MassDOT Safe Routes to School program. There's an announcement of the launch of the Signs and Lines program and the Infrastructure Grant program that is happening at the same time for this year. Both application periods will open on Wednesday, August 23rd, and one informational webinar will be held on August 23rd at 12 p.m. noon. Municipal staff, school and school district staff, Safe Routes to School task force members, and anyone else interested in Safe Routes to School is encouraged to attend. The webinar will provide some details on both application processes and expected project timelines, as well as review some examples of eligible and ineligible projects. This information is also posted on the MRPC website if you're not able to access the document, which is available in the meeting download folder the online download folder for this particular meeting. Next is a handout from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, announcing a new funding opportunity for private and public entities to replace eligible diesel vehicles and equipment. Through the Volkswagen settlement, the Mass DEP is allocating $7.5 million for zero-emission technologies. As part of the initiative in the 2023 Solid Waste Master Plan, funded by the Climate Protection and Mitigation Expendable Trust, Mass DEP is allocating $4 million to replace municipal waste-serving refuse trucks with more efficient options. This competitive solicitation has an application deadline of 5 p.m. on September 26, 2023. The handout also goes on to list eligible project types as well and how to find out for more information. This announcement is also on the MRPC website under announcements. There is a brief flyer with a handout from Federal Highway regarding planning updates for August. This is provided for informational purposes, and it is also on our website. And then finally, we just get an announcement come in today, this morning. Brian, I don't know if you have that one. It is should be labeled number 7. Scroll down, please. Keep going. A couple more. Anything else on there?
That's all I've got, Brad.
All right.
Just refreshed it. Yeah.
If you can give me
Nope.
all right, if you can give me control for a minute, I will
Sure.
put it up. Because I think it's a good one. Let me share. Window, I want to share this one. Okay. Okay, hopefully you can see this, an introduction to the bipartisan infrastructure law. Can you see that one? Brian, is that available? Okay, can you see that online?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, I get mentioned, this just came in through the email today, and basically it's an announcement from Federal Highway about a webinar related to the bipartisan infrastructure law, or BIL bill. And as mentioned in this, a historic amount of funding is available to transportation programs. Approximately $567 billion is available for transportation funding across all modes over 5 years, and about $351 billion of that is for highway-specific programs. There are also many new formula programs and new competitive discretionary programs. This training gives basic information. This training gives basic program familiarization awareness, including some content of the BIL, as well as key federal program and project requirements. This training will, however, not make you an expert in everything you need to know about these topics. However, it should greatly assist you in being able to identify what some of your programs or some of their programs or project issues might be that you could apply for a grant or where to get answers to some of your questions. The training is focused on local agencies, and the webinar is scheduled for Wednesday, September 6th at 2 p.m. The training is approximately 90 minutes with a question and answer session to follow. Pre-registration is required for all participants. And as with the others, this is also on our website. And this is also in the, should be in the download folder online for this meeting, where you can get it. And then there is a link down the bottom where it says register here. As I said, it is on our website, so you can get it and take a look at it. And this may help you understand some of the vast programs that are included in the bipartisan infrastructure law and how to get additional answers and additional information on these programs to maybe get something done for your community. And that is all I have regarding MassDOT 3C. Any questions? Nope, doesn't look like any.
I have a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Under the contract status reports, we like to hear from MRPC, the project they are working on under the FDA and Mass DOT for the transit.
Okay, I'll make that note, and starting with the next meeting, we'll get some more information to you about different projects that are ongoing under the FTA contract.
Yes, thank you.
Being nothing further to discuss, a motion to adjourn.
We just have the next MJTC meeting to go over
Okay.
quickly. The next meeting is scheduled for September 13th at 2:30. And in the past, the MJTC has gone to an every other month schedule in the fall, simply because things start to slow up. So if you still wish to meet on September 13th, that will be at the next meeting. If you would like to take September off, the next meeting would be in October. So just however the JTC would like to play it. And as in the case where all the others, if something comes up that's critical importance and we don't have a meeting scheduled, we can schedule a meeting and send out notices to everybody ahead of time. So do you wish to meet in September?
I think we should, because we already talked about the bylaw,
Okay,
at least beginning discussions. It could need to be only that item.
okay, great. Well, then the next meeting is September 13th at 2:30. And that is it.
Move to adjourn.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for attending.
thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.